you go. I'm going to give you some really awesome tips on how to find a research topic. Ta-dang. What you first need is an area that interests you, an area that you have done some reading on, that you know some authors and works on. Otherwise, at least an idea where you're willing to read on. So, what is it that really interests you? Think about it. Is it Indian English fiction? Or it could be something like historical drama? Or perhaps women's autobiography? Postmodern films? Are you interested in that? Well, let us look up something more exciting. Narratives of slavery. Would you like that? Wow. Narratives of sports people or artists. Sounds interesting. Narratives of the survivors of war or rape or genocide. Now, that interests me. Narratives of war, rape, genocide. There is genocide happening across the world right now. Killing of people, large communities or races by other races or other people, other communities. I would like to look up that. And then once you find an area like that, you feel something like this. That means you feel lost. How do you go about it? You don't know where to go, how to go about it. You feel helpless and threatened. But hey, you don't really have to feel so helpless. It is not that difficult. I'm going to tell you how. Don't panic. Don't jump. Calmly explore the area and find out major trends, authors, and themes in that area. You have to Google search. You have to read about that area that you like and find out what are the major trends in that area, who are the major authors, and what are the major books, what are the major themes in that area. It is easy to say, but difficult to do. So I will show you what I did. On a piece of paper, you have to note down your observations as you Google search. For example, you will get ideas from titles of books or titles of articles. When you just look at a title, you will get some keywords and some ideas. Write them down. When you look up some websites, you will get more ideas. When you look at the titles and content or schedule of seminars or conferences, you will get ideas. Sometimes when you Google search, there will be other keywords that you're not aware of that other people have searched that will come up. In the search box, keywords will come up. Even those keywords will give you ideas. Note down all these ideas. Remember, the words you get should be cross-referred in other ways, in other combinations. That means you have to Google search these words in other combinations to get more and more. You should have an exhaustive list of observations noted down on a piece of paper. I'm sure you did not exactly get it. How exactly to go about it, I'm sure you did not get. So I will show you what I did. Look at what I did. Narratives of genocide survivors. That is what I searched for. And then I went down. I looked at Rwandan narratives. I found empowerment narratives. Wow, I'm writing down all that in my piece of paper. And then I look out for other keywords. Testimonies, narrating genocide. Wow, time, memory, and blame. I'm writing down all those words in my paper. Rwandan narratives seem to be very famous and popular. Narratives of home, violence, and spatial belonging. Resistance. You don't just browse through so quickly. You have to read. Now I'm going to look up that one link on the dynamics of deliberate and unintentional amnesia. That is an important term. Deliberate as well as unintentional amnesia. Read through all this. Try to see if it gives you ideas. Tortured bodies, rape and disposability in Mahashweta Devi. Disposability seems to be an important term. Write that down. Gender inequality, non-binary, transgender people. That also you could write down. Transgender. Wow. That is what I'm going to do. I have decided. I will look at transgender people's narratives. And all these keywords that I wrote about with regard to genocide, I can use here. The experiences of war, rape, genocide, writings about that will help me get ideas on transgender people. Now, how is that? Look at all the keywords that I've written. This is my paper, Narratives of Transgender People. From the browsing that I did, this is what I've written down. Testimonies, interviews, art, memoirs, autobiographies, films, all these will be my primary sources. I can take testimonies of transgender people along with interviews, along with artworks that they have made, memoirs. If autobiographies are available, I can take those. I can take films representing transgender people. And what are the keywords? Amnesia, that is deliberate as well as unintentional. You deliberately forget or pretend that you forget. That is one. Memory is associated with amnesia, individual and collective. Then the concept of time and theories of time. And refugee. The transgender people as refugees. Idea of home, because they are mostly thrown out from their homes. They have to forge new ideas of home. How do they deal with spatial belonging and dislocation? Cultural trauma. Themes of blame, guilt, resistance. How are they blamed? Do they blame themselves? Do they feel guilt? How do they resist? The extreme experiences of violence, tortured bodies as a theme. So you have to cross-refer all these. Transgender narratives, tortured bodies. Transgender narratives, blame, guilt, resistance. Like that, when you cross-refer and browse like we did before, you will get even more ideas. Then disposability. You have to search for transgender people, disposability. Disposability of bodies, theory. Disposability in culture, sociology, disposability research. You will get a lot of unnecessary links and websites also. You should use your discretion to use the necessary ideas that will help you in framing a topic. Then I found biopolitics. Look up biopolitics, read about it. Each of these is actually a term. It will have a theory behind it. You will have to spend a lot of time reading on it in relation to transgender narratives. And also you have to read on non-binary gender. Gender is not just male or female. Gender is multiple. Gender is fluid. All those ideas. Like that, when you read, you can get more ideas. When we search in new combinations, I also come across, these are the new combinations. I also come across transgender rights, the concept of gender refugees, LGBTQ migration to Canada, US, UK. Many countries have LGBTQ people. They emigrate to liberal countries like Canada, the US, and the UK. Then the concept of asylum, diaspora, systemic discrimination, homophobia, corrective rape. All these are new terms that I got. I will show you how I got these terms. I searched for transgender people, refugee. That is the keywords that I used. Transgender people, refugee. And I look up what comes below. You can read some of these articles that you get. Systemic discrimination against transgender women, transgender equality, sexual orientation and gender identity. Go down, go down. Transgender refugees in Greece. See, transgender refugees. Gender refugees. You have to look up that term more. When you see it more than once, it means it is a commonly used term. Migration, asylum, diasporas, necropolitics. Write down all that and look it up. Asylum for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people. Now I am looking up transgender people, refugee, Indians, another combination of keywords. I'm going down. LGBTQ migration. Wow, that is a Wikipedia entry. You should read it. And why transgender Indians oppose a bill. So, India bill, that also you should look up. Let us read that Wikipedia entry. What is happening to transgender people? How are they discriminated? discrimination, tolerance. These are also keywords. Across the world, so many countries, transgender people undergo discrimination. Go down, go down. You should read all that if you can. Current trends of migration. That's interesting. Prominent countries like Iran, Iraq, Jamaica, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. Here, transgender people are undergoing discrimination. They emigrate to Canada, Britain, and the United States. Read about that. Go down. Write down keywords in your white paper. And use new combinations of keywords. Always go to the references. See also, all those websites also you should look up. The references will give you books and authors, scholarly articles. When you do Google search, you will also get scholarly articles. Definitely read them. Do not just browse through them, do not get derailed from your topic. Now, transgender people, refugee narratives we are looking up. Scholarly articles are there, I told you. Look that up also. And go down and see if there are other interesting ideas. Transgender refugees and the imagined South Africa. So imaginary homeland, that also you can apply here, I suppose. Transgender identity is an imagination. I'm removing people, transgender refugee narratives. Again, transgender refugees and imagined South Africa is coming up. So I'm looking it up. It is a book. Bodies over borders. So bodies, theory of body, that also you should apply. Write that also. There will be keywords given in articles and books, which will also be your keywords. You can buy chapters, but they have a lot of, money. You have to pay a lot of money. So not at this stage. Go and do again Google search. Transgender refugee books. Wow. You have got a lot of books now. Many of these books can be read partly in Google Books. You should read up these books in Google Books. Find out ideas. You should have a whole book full of ideas now. But you should be also cleverly organizing these ideas. Let us see how. So now you have all these books and articles. What do you do with them? You can download articles in PDF and read them and note down keywords and ideas from them. You can read books in Google Books. You can find more books from bibliographies of dissertations and search for those books also. Spend a few days or weeks or even months like this, reading and making notes. Actually, before you write a synopsis, you should spend at least 6 months. Because a good synopsis is research half done. Don't think it is a waste of time preparing for a synopsis. Taking months over a synopsis is not a waste of time. It is research half done. You should really get into the topic and the area and read a lot before you write the synopsis. How do you read? Never lose focus. Remember that you are going towards a topic. And slowly, you should collect more and more information regarding the topic. But you should do wide reading. Your wide reading should result in a big list of narratives. The most important thing is to organize these narratives into primary sources, secondary references, and background material which will give us general knowledge of the subject. When you write your dissertation finally, it is the primary sources that you focus on deeply. You do detailed analysis of like 5 to 8 primary sources. That is enough. You should not take 15, 20 primary sources. And then secondary references should be there. Not only critical material, but other narratives, other memoirs and testimonies that are not primary sources can also be your secondary references. It can include a multidisciplinary kind of reference, such as films can be there, paintings can be there, all sorts of narratives can be there. And some material, you don't have to actually refer in your dissertation at all. It will give you background general knowledge of the subject. So like that, whatever you have read, you should organize. It's important. Now, what do you have here? You have a whole list of topics and themes and ideas and books. What have you attained by now? You have attained general knowledge of the subject. If somebody asks you about transgender narratives, even though you have not framed a topic yet, You will be able to tell them a lot of things about transgender people, their history, their discrimination, their narratives. So general knowledge of the subject. At this stage, you can start talking to people. You can start making videos on transgender narratives or talking to people and teaching people, etc., so that you will get clear on what you know. Your ideas will become clear. Then you have identified primary sources. You can at first identify 10 or 12 primary sources and then remove. When you read all of them, you will find that some are more suitable. You should have a rationale for choosing the primary sources and slowly remove some of them and zoom in on a few of them. The primary sources should be read thoroughly. You should read them. Not only summaries, the books you should read and also read about them. You should find articles and videos, etc., on the primary sources also. And you should also frame some research questions at this stage. You should frame some research questions. What are research questions? Research questions will look at your topic from all angles. All the different angles of your topic, the research questions should cover. Also, it is from these research questions that you do your research. You will find answers for these research questions in your research. So research questions are important. What are you looking at in your research? That direction is given to you by these research questions. Don't think that once you make research questions, you can't change them. As you do your research, you can change them. And also, from the research questions, you can frame the hypotheses. Now, I'm sure you are not quite sure how to write the research questions or the hypotheses. So, how exactly do you do that? I will show you. Look at 2 research questions I have randomly made. You don't have to write exactly these questions from your reading. You should frame your own questions. My questions are, in what ways do transgender narratives renegotiate the concept of home and belonging? The concept of home for a middle-class family is different. Heterosexual family, that is different from the concept of home for transgender people. For transgender people are mostly thrown out of their homes by the mainstream society, very sadly. They find discrimination everywhere, in home, in family, in school. So the transgender people get together and forge new concepts of home. And how do they do that? How do you know that from their narratives? That is one research question. How do transgender bodies become the arena of biopolitics? That is another research question that I have framed. How do transgender people use their bodies as a political act? How is politics or power working on them? And how do they wield power themselves? So from these research questions, you can frame hypotheses. If research questions begin with how, what, when, in what ways, etc., hypotheses are statements that you will check in your research. You will test whether these hypotheses are right or wrong. Hypotheses, ES it should be. Transgender narratives renegotiate the concept of home and belonging. How do they renegotiate? That is the research question. Hypothesis is transgender narratives renegotiate the concept of home and belonging. You will test whether this hypothesis is correct or wrong and how far it is correct and how it is correct, etc. That is the research. Transgender bodies are the site of biopolitics and disposability. You should read up more on that. So that is how you frame hypothesis. You don't have to stick to my topic and my questions. I am just guiding you. These can be applied to any topic. When you do browsing and research on any topic, you will similarly choose keywords and themes and books and frame research questions similarly. At this stage, if you do not know how exactly to go about it, that is why you have a research supervisor or a guide. Now, how do you frame a title? Remember all the points that you wrote before in your white paper? Take it once again, and more points will be there as you go on reading. More and more points or keywords you would have written. And how do you frame a title? Write down all the central ideas in your argument. Sometimes your argument can be centered on amnesia, memory, trauma, torture, trauma, blame, guilt, etc. Sometimes your research topic can be framed on the concepts of refugee, home, violence, displacement, etc. So what focus you are giving, those central ideas write down and connect the most important ideas in these from the list. I will tell you, when you actually write your dissertation, all the points that you have written here, every single theme that you have written here can ultimately become a paragraph in your dissertation connected to the primary sources. Do not throw away all these themes that you wrote. Every one of these can be probably written in your dissertation as a theme. So when you actually write your dissertation, many people will be at a loss how to write, how to get content, where to write from. All these keywords that you have written at the beginning will guide you. Expand these keywords, you will get the dissertation. And your research begins. You have to, after this, go to libraries, collect books, browse online, start writing notes on everything you have read, carefully document everything you have read, and make sure that you organize your ideas. You should have chapter divisions. All the things that you read will go into some chapter or the other. You have to read the primary sources repeatedly, and your dissertation will be written. That is how you do research. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much.